Welcome everyone and welcome to those streaming in tonight for what is the first Finance and Budget Delegated Committee for calendar year 2025. I'd like to invite Councillor Hall to do the Acknowledgement of Country.
Okay. Wodonga Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first peoples of the country. We also acknowledge them as the traditional owners and custodians across various lands. We pay our respect to their ancestors, elders, children and young people. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and recognise their continuous connections to lands, borders and communities across the country.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Item 2 is apologies, and there are none. Item 3 is the Good Governance Pledge, which Councillor Aldridge has volunteered to provide.
Wodonga councillors have committed to undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the municipal community, abide by the Model Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Model Councillor Code of Conduct. Faithfully and impartially carry out and exercise the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in the Office of Councillor under the Local Government Act 2020 and any other act to the best of their skill and judgment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aldridge. Item 4 is the Declaration of Conflict of Interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts to declare? I can note that, thank you. The confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting of 9th of December. I could have a mover for confirmation. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Knight. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Which now leads us to item 6, which is the reports for determination being 6.1, 2025-2026 rate cap. Councillor Quilty.
I would like to propose a motion to test the floor and see the debate on that. My proposed motion reads: the Finance and Budget Delegated Committee 1. Note the 2025/26 rate cap of 3% pursuant to section 185D in brackets 1, subsection 1 of the Local Government Act 1989 Victoria. And number 2, adopt a 2.5% as a 2025-26 budget assumption and requests officers to prepare the 2025-26 financial plan and budget on that basis. Requests officers to prepare and present options for implementing a 2.75% or 3% as per rate cap as a rate increase as alternatives to the 2.5% rate.
So just to be clear, a suggestion regarding the second one not being 3% but being 2.5 and the third one being 2.75 and 3%.
Yes.
Do you have a seconder for that?
No, I'll second it for
Thank you,
purposes.
Councillor Hall. Any comments or questions regarding that from any councillors? There being none, I'll put it to vote.
Don't I get to speak?
You can speak.
You can get to speak to it. Thank you, Councillor Quilty.
Thank you very much. And thank you for indulging me with this debate. We have in the briefing prior to this meeting asked a lot of questions of what will be involved in using various scenarios at rate cap and below rate cap, and we asked about the level of difficulty, potential risks to transparency and the financial long-term financial outlook. It is my belief that it is a good idea to start with the scenario of the lower percentage that we are entertaining, because it will involve more work. It will increase transparency connected to the potential risks, both in services that we may or may not have to cut, and in terms of our financial outlook. Working on a 3% budget will give a raise will give us a lot more leeway and will not expose the potential services that we may have to cut should we go for lower rate revenue, or transparency wise it may not expose the areas where we run the risks of long-term financial outlook. Therefore I firmly believe that it is more prudent and probably more, but I stand to be corrected by officers because it will be them doing it. In my view, it might prove to be a bit less labor intensive to start with a more difficult task first, and it will be really good to hear from the ratepayers once we present the tighter budget of what they think about it, whether the ratepayers will say, what are you doing, increase the budget, you have 3% limit, or look at your long-term outlook, make sure you add this and this to the budget, we want that. Or maybe we will have none of such feedback. I believe we are only discussing the assumption we're going to work on. I could go on about the benefits of lower rates, but I will not do that because it's the discussion and debate for another forum for our following meetings. Today I have presented my reasonings of why I would like to start with tighter budgets. Tighter budgets not only drive efficiencies but present a good basis, and I believe present better transparency opportunities, and then we can build onto that and based on the community feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Hall, would you like to comment as the seconder?
Yes. I support Councillor Quilty's recommendation and motion that she's put forward. I agree. I think it's better to start off with a tighter budget and see where we sit going forward. We may have to adjust that up if there's a need to. But I think, like any budget, we put a budget together. We work to that, and then if we've got some, things that we may want to do, then we can adjust it accordingly. So putting the other two assumptions for modelling in, the 2.75 and the 5%, give us an opportunity to look at that. 3. Did I say 3? Is it 5? Did I? Sorry, got 5 on my mind. No, 3%. Yeah. So I think that's to me that's a good way to start the modelling and the assumptions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any questions or comments by other councillors?
I had a comment, I suppose. Thank you for raising that as an alternative. And I suppose my comment is around like a family budget. You would start with the tighter budget and then kind of work up with, okay, well, we're going to have to forego this or forego that. My only concern would be that if we did have to then increase that to a 3, how that would be perceived or how we would communicate that with the community and the attitudes around increasing it.
May I respond?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much for raising that point, Councillor Seymour. It is, I believe, and it's my belief entirely, a political decision, and some of us are just councillors, others are politicians, so it basically comes to how fearless a politician we are, and what risks are we prepared to take in terms of being re-elected. Are we looking at the next election, or are we looking at the future of our ratepayers? And I believe as long as we are completely transparent about where going under rate cap, there are options being considered, there are scenarios being considered for higher rate caps. Please give us feedback of what you think about that. It all comes back to do we want to risk it in terms of our political goals? But that's my opinion entirely, and it's up to everybody else to make their own decisions.
Thank you. Councillor Cowan?
I'd just like to ask a question. It's in the recommendation here that the CPI and the disconnect that poses with the rate cap that's been recommended is causing significant financial challenges for councils into the future. So have you, in making that recommendation to look at a lower rate cap, have you considered the impact that that might have on the livability and the ability of council to offer services to our general population?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for this question. I have absolutely considered that on many occasions, even prior to this budget. I believe I'm very happy to discuss this either today or future forums. However, I believe that we are going into the debate of should we accept the lower percent rate increase. What we're talking about today is using an assumption. What is a better assumption for us to start working for? The basis and the risk it potentially exposes or doesn't expose us to versus working with the highest possible rate rise. Yes, there are things to debate and to consider with adopting a budget with a 2.5, 2.75 or 3% increase. I believe we'll probably have a more in detail discussion in the future, but in answer to your question, yes, I have considered that, and yes, I would like to have a lot more conversations about that. I don't know if it's appropriate for today.
Right, it's just, it was in the recommendation, it was the underlying premise of the recommendation from the officers. Thank you.
It's a comment, thank you.
Comment, thanks.
Any other questions or comments to the mover or seconder?
Why? Sorry, yes.
Councillor Knight.
Why would we be better to look at 2.75 when we're hitting the middle ground? Then we can go up or down from there.
Look, I think it's taking half measures, and it will be a good first step in our build up on the basic budget. My main reason for suggesting the lowest possible scenario that we are prepared to entertain is preparing the absolute basis. Looking at the risks, considering the risks, exposing them, showing them to the public, and then seeing how many steps up we can and want to go.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I've got a question of Officer Quill, if possible, just regarding the logistics and practicality of working a budget from a base of 2.5 versus working on a budget basis 3%. How do you see that going in the context of potentially a council group electing to determine a different number as a budget assumption? Do you want to talk us through that?
So I think the question there, Global, essentially is if we were to have 2.5 as a budget and principle and assumption for preparing the budget, and then we moved at a later date to actually say 3 after we saw the scenario analysis, would that create more or less work than simply adopting 3 now? It would create more work, and it would be my recommendation to act according to the report, which is to prepare the budget on 3% with 2 alternatives of 2.5 and 2.75, and move to those if the opportunity and capacity arises, rather than to prepare on the lower figures. It would create significantly more work.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to that, Councillor?
A further question, does that mean that we are not seriously entertaining 2.5 and 2.75 if we are, if it will require significantly more work and we're seriously entertaining only 3%?
I think the intention is to seriously entertain all 3 options, but also be realistic, noting the recommendations from both the recent Victorian Government inquiry and also our own independent financial inquiry recommending that councils take the rate cap because of the divergence between CPI and the rate cap, leaving councils in challenging positions. recognising that and therefore the likelihood and necessity for us to take the rate cap in full rather than going underneath it. That's the rationale for saying that it is likely to take more work to do the 2.5 and then flip rather than doing the 3, because we really do feel that the 3 is going to be the necessity for us to take, and note that is supported by those independent inquiries, but also recognising our ratepayers are struggling in terms of making payments in some instances and wanting to completely flesh out the alternatives, which is the rationale behind them in the report and putting forward those three options.
May I ask a further question towards the recommendation? Why are we? You have answered a little bit on why we have 2.75 and 2.5% scenarios. What's the point of doing this exercise then if we're not seriously entertaining it? Is it taking more away from our limited workforce time, and wouldn't it make more sense just to have 3% and that's it?
So if we were to just simply have one option and not 3, the option that we would be recommending would be 3, and we would be noting that that is supported by both the Victorian government's internal inquiry into local government financial sustainability and AEC. However, we're trying to actually recognise that rather than just putting one number forward, we're wanting to show a complete set of options. However, we really do think that 3 is likely to be the option that does need to be landed upon, but we are absolutely serious about putting forward options for the 2.5 and 2.75 that are well detailed and provide choices for councillors. But from a logistics perspective, it still would be more straightforward to prepare the 3 with the other 2 options rather than to prepare 2.5 with the other options, because we really do anticipate that the 3% will be absolutely necessary to be able to continue council's operations without needing to reduce services or cut its workforce.
So am I right in understanding that doing 2.75 and 2.5 scenarios are a lot more than simply our way of acknowledging people struggling to pay the rates but not doing anything about it in reality?
I don't think I understand the question, and think there's some potentially politics rather than necessarily a technical expertise, and note that I'm a technical expert, and so may need to hand over to Mr. Hyde as the Chief Executive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that is definitely a political question and something that's in the councillor's realm to make decisions on as representatives of the community. I will just create some clarity around if council's proposal by the staff is to do one budget and 2 scenarios. To do 3 budgets creates an impossible workload to do that. So you try and place, for transparency reasons, the budget you propose as being the most likely outcome and the scenarios as being options, but probably not a likely outcome, because the additional work associated with the options to turn them into the budget is quite significant impost on staff time in preparing it, and there's no way we have the staff resources to prepare 3 full budgets. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Cordy, any supplementary questions or comments to the CEO after that? No?
Probably not, thank you.
If I could just ask my last question, and really for the benefit of councillors, but also those listening in, Councillor Quill, could you please articulate what you would expect to be providing councillors when making this decision in relation to those 2 other scenarios, whatever they be?
So for the 2 scenarios, what we're proposing is a table that demonstrates the impact on the revenue by taking a lower rate amount. So we'll be actually calling out that taking a lower rate amount, for example, next year would result in $300,000 less revenue for that year. Would give the same figure for the following 10 years as well. And then underneath that, we would actually outline the services that would need to adjust at council to be able to fund those lower amounts. And so that would be broken down looking at things such as staffing as well as materials and contractors. And we would articulate those specific amounts in those categories in the service level reduction that would be necessary to fund that, because it wouldn't be possible for us to take a lower rate cap without adjusting services.
Thank you. Councillor Quilty, any further questions or comments? No? Councillor Hall, is the seconder? No?
I can't speak again.
Right. That being the case, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll put it to a vote. So all those in favour
I'm sorry, is anybody going to foreshadow, or does anybody need to foreshadow going as per recommendation? Should this?
at this point?
And
Foreshadow an alternative at this point?
yeah, you can flag that, yes.
I'll foreshadow the motion as recommended.
And I'll second it.
Okay.
As
Might
recommended.
want to detail what that
So
is
what-
before you second it.
Yeah, so what would that foreshadow?
I'll foreshadow the motion, the recommendation as set out in the report.
Right.
And I'll second that.
Thank you,
As-
Councillor Cowan. And Councillor Aldridge seconded.
Just note the foreshadow, we don't actually.
Yeah, yes, no, I understand that.
No.
So now to a vote on Councillor Quilty's motion. Thank you. So all those in favour? All those against? Okay, so Councillor Quilty, Councillor Hall, Councillor Knight, Councillor Seymour, in favour. All those against? Councillor Cowan, Councillor Aldridge.
Yeah.
Councillor,
Put your hand up somewhere.
I'm just doing me last.
Oh, okay.
Councillor Hall, Councillor Goble. That's carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Quilty. That's noted. Which now then brings us to item 7, confidential business. CEO, I understand there is none.
That's correct.
And that then leads us to the close of the meeting if there are no other items. So if I could declare the meeting closed at 6:21. Thank you very much.
So it was at 6:31.